Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bits About Bots, where I get to interview experts in the space, field practitioners, and automation enthusiasts. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Stefan, a gentleman who I shared the esteemed pleasure of sitting on a panel with the CFO Leadership Council on recently. And so after those insights, I decided it was time to bring him on to Bits About Bots to share a little bit about the journey he's been on and how he's been leading AI in his space. Stefan, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you give everybody a little introduction to who you are and the organization that you've been working for?
Thank you, Paula. I'm excited to be on your podcast. My name is Stefan Boehmer. I work for Körber Supply Chain. I'm the Executive Vice President and CFO. Körber Supply Chain is part of Körber. Körber is organized in 4 business areas. We service the pharma industry, technologies, supply chain industry, and digital business. I'm part of the supply chain business. I'm responsible for the commercial activities in North America, Canada, and Mexico. In supply chain, we focus on AI and RPA. For A, to improve our internal business, and B, for our customers.
That's fantastic. And so because of that depth and breadth of the space that you cover within the organization, we talked early on about how it's important to centralize continuous improvement. It's not something that just originates in a process improvement department anymore. We're really seeing that technology has been the great connector of multiple business units, streamlining the way that revenue is adhered to and produced and recognized in organizations. So how did you guys determine where you should start when this journey began?
Körber recognized the importance, and hence we have created our own business area, digital business. So we bought a company in Denmark to supplement our AI activities. How we started with a learning journey, because there are 2 critical elements for implementation of RPA and AI. It's first the employees, the knowledge and skills, and secondly, the data lake, the data transparency, availability, and so on. On the learning journey, we used external partners to train our employees. We started with explaining what is AI, what tools are available, difference between data, image creation. Looked at use cases, for example, summarized a 90-page report in seconds. For example, created parts which are fit, form, and function, and then defined our own use cases.
That's fantastic. And I think you and I share this in our understanding that the market continues to evolve. And sometimes it's difficult to discern hype versus reality when it comes to actually operationalizing these technologies. And I do this every day with our clients of helping them understand, what is practical adoption, why use technology, but not use it for the sake of using it, really finding value-driven levers. So as it relates to, where you guys started prioritizing those use cases, and those examples are great ones, to start off with, how did you determine your sequencing of deployment? Because obviously we can't fix everything in 1 year. It truly is a journey. So tell me a little bit about the prioritization exercise you and your counterparts went through to determine truly where to start.
Sure. We struggled to define an overall budget for AI. So what we did in the beginning, we defined the budget for the learning journey, and then we clustered the use cases and looked for low-hanging fruit. You have the matrix of complexity and implementation cost. You look for something with low implementation cost and low return, but fast return. You want to generate buy-in from the management, from the colleagues, and you have to show success. And after that, you would continue and look at higher impact projects, but these take normally a little bit longer to implement.
Well, and I love the fact that you guys prioritize the learning journey, because I think with any implementation, there's either a tangential change management cost associated with implementation of technology, or you really start the way you guys did, which was infusing everybody as part of the solution and the success. And so how was that received? How was, what was some of the feedback from the employees as you began to evangelize this across the organization?
We asked for volunteers, and we got much more volunteers than we had places available. So we had to select the first 15, 16 employees for the first learning journey. I believe overall the feedback was positive. People felt empowered to be part of it, and also empowered that their voices were heard and considered.
That's fantastic.
With it, you see the AI topic in the employee community, because they talk about it. It spreads.
Well, and what's awesome about it spreading organically that way too is that as new processes begin to become developed and as new operations get deployed, everyone's thinking with a modern mindset, right? And they begin to really think AI first. So have some of your automation ideas and use cases along the way, what percentage would you attribute get sourced from the field, so to speak, versus initiatives that you guys have been putting forward? Is there a healthy balance at this stage?
I mean, we combine RPA and AI. We have a hopper where ideas get collected. They can be submitted by anybody, employees, management, and then we prioritize based on what makes sense for the company, looking at cost to implement, time to implement, and savings. Savings we count in machine hours saved. And examples are we automated spare parts invoicing. In the past, one person had to take all the information out of the SAP systems and generate a manual invoice, which had to be mailed. And we were able to automate that. And with that automation, we reduced the work of one employee. And we were able to use that employee for more qualitative work, more analytical work.
That's so fantastic. No, and you know what I love about that too is that having them be part of the journey allows them to begin sourcing those ideas and see that their opinion is valued and listened to, because in so many organizations you have such a hierarchy that the doers in the field don't necessarily get to explain how things could be improved. And so it's really getting the best of the operational efficiencies and understanding what is important. The talent that is required for a modern organization has begun to shift, and it's put a strain on HR departments trying to source the right talent. I think the education system is trying to catch up with what they're supposed to teach in curriculum, to get students ready for what the modern day workforce looks like. How have you guys started thinking through your succession planning? Of those original 15 that volunteered, how many more have joined the fold, and how do you continue to kind of pull people up in the upskill portion of prioritizing your automation builds?
I mean, we recognized two things. We started with our own programmers on staff, and our program got challenged when people left. We also weren't able to justify the work they did to understand if the architecture was similar or standard. So what we decided is we asked for third-party help. We outsourced programming to a third-party company because they are the experts. They have a standard they will continue to develop and apply. And we also started to look into solutions which come from third-party companies, like our AP solution is from third-party, AI-based. We made a selection, and we don't have to develop the wheel by ourselves.
And it's so important as this journey continues. You mentioned something that I think is really important, identifying the common currency in what value is, right? And some organizations use hours, some organizations use hard cost saving metrics, and some use, lack of attrition. And then there's a hybrid blend of all of those, right? And so when you think through kind of who you're going to bring on versus how you're going to outsource different people, or different processes maybe to be, out of the box, ready to go. It begins to devise what we call at Wonderbots a self-sustaining program. Ultimately, this shouldn't be a accretive cost to the organization. This should be something that fully supports itself, right? And you were sharing with me, and I think it's important to share with especially newbies to the mix, some of the lessons learned along the way. And so you had shared with me a few of the costly mistakes, up front, but that you learned quickly from. Could you illustrate that story for everybody here today?
I mean, when we started, we pretty much followed the hype and didn't understand what we were doing. And we realized very fast we have to educate our people. So that was when we stopped the activities and said, let's start with the basic, find a common nomenclature, a common language. What is AI? How can we use it? And we also identified challenges with our data. Our SAP system is 28 years old. So instead of ongoing improvements to SAP, the question came up, how can we leverage AI solutions and connect with SAP? Because I don't need to do everything nowadays in SAP.
No, I totally agree. And I think that becomes, it becomes an important lever for IT departments who have traditionally had to find the solution within the stoic systems that they're managing, right? And they continue to have to find places and areas where they can improve or do, add-on code, hard code, to get things to move along. And what we know now is that a more assimilative code that's a little bit more business friendly allows us to extract from source systems in ways that you used to need a Python or SQL developer to be able to do back in the day, right? And so as you kind of continue to think through the business units that have adopted this mindset, and you guys have done such a tremendous job of evangelizing this across the organization, how is it that your team goes about understanding the unique process challenges in the different lines of business? What is your process for, once the hopper is filled, you identify that something might make sense. What is the process that you take to fully understand it and see what the robot way or the automation way should look? Because it's not going to be the same as the way people do it, right? So how do you guys go about that?
I mean, that's the next step. Once we have identified the project, we use our outsourced partner and our business function to analyze the processes, record the steps, and identify what can be automated and in which way it can be automated. So we have to bring our outsourced partner to the business, explain the business steps, business processes, and then they translate it into the required language. But the key is the process knowledge.
No, process knowledge is key. And that's what I was going to piggyback on. How often is the process reimagined in preparation for automation, would you say?
It's a learning journey again, because we also realize in some ways it makes sense to change processes to automate, because we have done things for many years without thinking about any change. And once you start analyzing it and learning it, you realize there might be a better way. And then it's a step-by-step approach with our outsourced party, because it goes iterative. I mean, you get a solution back, you test it, doesn't deliver what you expect, you have to fine-tune it. But yeah, that's a process.
Yes, no, I definitely agree. And at Wonderbots, we call it the robot way. So if you're automating something the way that humans do it, 9 times out of 10, that's probably not the best path forward. Just to maintain the resilience of the automation structure and ensuring that there's a straight path to extract whatever the data is, transform it, and make it move. So that's fantastic. And I think that is a learning process. We can't all be experts at every single process. So it's learning how to ask the right questions so that we can be, really good business partners as an automation organization. One of the other things that comes up a lot, is, these new AI companies. They're coming out of the woodworks. Everybody is an AI firm these days, right? And it becomes very difficult, even for me, and I live and breathe this every single day, to discern who's real, who's not, who's here to stay, who's not. And I often educate our clients by saying, follow the funding. That tends to imply that there's some material outcomes in these organizations. But I think it's a continuous learning curve on AI literacy. And so how do you guys continue to promote the AI story internally? How do you continuously educate the organization with all of the different hype cycles that come at us daily?
And we need to get better there. I mean, that's a constant communication. You cannot over communicate. You have to share best practice examples, success stories. You have to take the people along. On my side, for example, we identified Google classes to supplement our AI story, which we recommended employees to take. You have to take them along. The challenge in total is the market is very defragmented. We went to an AI summit yesterday, and there's a lot of startup companies, and like you said, they ask for funding. We're not sure if that product makes sense they're trying to sell. I think that's typical gold rush in the beginning. Everybody tries to jump on it. You have to qualify with whom you work. You need to look at case studies, what was done, best practice examples from the company, see how solid the company is. But there's no need to develop the wheel in your own company.
I totally agree. And I think it's important to, I know it's kind of an old school concept, but the art of networking cannot be overstated here because, practitioners, doers, advisory firms alike, I think us coming together and having conversations like this really helps make sure that we're all on the same page and we're talking about the same thing.
I agree. I mean, we also started talking with some schools to clearly define what we need in the future, because high school students, university, college students have to learn today what the business requires in 5 to 10 years. And that's a shift, what will come and hit us.
Yes, I totally agree. And I'm very active with the university community as well, because that's where our next employees are coming from. And so we have to make sure that they have AI literacy first and foremost in their understanding and their framework and their nomenclature. And they're going to pick the organizations that are modern. I say this all the time, but you're not going to get an accountant that's going to be okay with pivot tables, to get to month-end close. It's just not going to happen anymore. So Stefan, I just wanted to ask you one last thing in identifying, kind of the new world, right? And as we forge out to modernize the organizations that at Wonderbots, we help multiple organizations. In your case, you help one with many lines of business. What would you recommend to people thinking about trying to learn? Any websites or any, networking groups or any courses that you would recommend to a nascent AI adopter, somebody just trying to dabble in understanding what it is that we're talking about here? What would you advise?
I don't want to get to specific recommendations. In general, networking is great. You have various events from the local chamber of commerces. You have various school events. On the tool side, I'm impressed how many universities offer free classes. You won't get a certificate, but they will explain to you and teach you in AI. And also Google is pretty impressive. So if the company doesn't offer something, there's always third party you can leverage, but you need to initiate it. You need to recognize there's a need for it. And AI won't replace people in the near future, but people with AI knowledge will replace people without AI knowledge.
Well, that was beautifully summed up, and I think that's spot on. So everybody that doesn't have AI knowledge, go out and do a Google search at the very least. If not, feel free to turn to organizations like Wonderbots. We always have fantastic, speakers. We have fantastic thought leaders like Stefan who join us to continue to tell us the practical and operational approaches to AI. Stefan, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your insight today with us on Bits About Bots.
Thank you, Paula. The pleasure was all on my side.
Oh, thank you.